the bird keeper flew with the birds every single day. And his name was Tevin.
All right, I love control. Who better to have in your military than someone who loves control and just wants to harness it? So that was my goal. In the 90s, I loved playing with that little C-130 right there, watching Colin Powell on TV and looking up and dreaming, well, that's what I want to be one day. So in high school, that dream kind of matured and said, I want to be the Chief of Staff of the United States Air Force, a job that for 70 years has been owned by pilots. I want to be the first one that was a cyber Chief of Staff. So the plan was simple. You become a second lieutenant, a commissioned officer, you do your job, you get promoted, you go through the ranks, and you become Chief of Staff. That's kind of how it goes. But as all really good generals know, all their plans fail at first contact, and mine did as well. So in a program called Air Force ROTC, where aspiring students want to become commissioned officers, they have to take this thing called an AFOQT. You only get 2 chances to take this in your life. I took it twice and failed both times. I was devastated. Going from there, I went, what am I going to do now? So I tried the Army ROTC program. Army guys are great, but it wasn't really my kind of speed. I tried the State Department, I went to the Coast Guard Academy, worked there for a little bit, but that flair was still there. I still wanted to be in the military. I still wanted to lead our military cyber-wise. So I came back. My mentors who had control of the situation got me a third opportunity, and I passed. I actually worked hard to pass. But let me tell you what resilience isn't that happened right after I passed. After I passed, I was offered an express scholarship for a career field that needed to be manned. And my commander provided it to me, which is the equivalent of a GM, but Big Air Force corporate said no. I was furious, I was upset, I checked the box, right? You go down the list, you check the box, go, pass go, collect the $200, commission, keep going. It didn't work that way. So I said, you know what, I'm gonna make the Air Force want me. I'm gonna make them wish they had me. Listen to Beyonce one too many times. So I kept having these lingering thoughts about wanting to be in the military, and it didn't work out that way. It turned out to be quite contrary. I actually called the Air Force and went to the recruiter to enlist. And as I went to enlist, I was told I wasn't competitive to be an officer. Again, Big Air Force said, this is what we want, and they put my package forward. So I said, you know what, I'll start at the bottom, not really understanding how hard that was gonna be for someone who liked control. Some of these negating behaviors for resiliency that I had was trying to control everything, not shifting my mindset, not willing to adapt to the situation, and it made it worse for myself. I went through BMT and I came to Wichita, Kansas. Not on my dream sheet, but they brought me here. The only thing I had on my mind was those gold bars that I showed you earlier. And that made me a pain for my leadership. It made me a pain for some of my peers. And they tried to help me through that, but they didn't really have the tools to help me navigate that space. So I needed a rethink. I needed to take the time to step back and understand what was really going on. And the mentor helped me realize that. Because one day I sat back and I realized that I do not have control. I was nearly turning red, tearing up in the eyes, and then I just smirked a little bit and said, I really don't have control of this situation or anything else. So I thought that was a really funny moment, and I started to learn more about resiliency. Resiliency is taking the time to understand the situation logically, taking the time to understand that your plan doesn't necessarily have to, like your goal doesn't have to happen on your timeline, just adapt and make it work eventually, like work through the challenge. I learned that to be a great leader, you don't have to wait till you're a leader. You don't have to wait for the title. You start now, and that's what's going to make you a leader. You start now because that's what's going to mold you. Your team is going to mold you. My team is going to mold you. The effects of this was my hypertension disappeared. I forgot to tell you that earlier. I was so gung-ho about control that I had hypertension, and I was a healthy person coming here. And that disappeared. My office started appreciating me more. My leadership started involving me more. So what was next? That's the great part of this story. Next week, I have an opportunity to interview for a cyber warfare officer position. And I would not have had that opportunity if I didn't step back and reanalyze the situation and adapt to what was going on. And I let go of control of what's outside of my sphere and actually control what was within my lane. I don't like lanes, but it's what's in my lane. So thank you, and let go of control sometimes.